Something strange is happening behind the gates of Silverstone. A car that hasn't even turned a wheel is already causing panic. Sources close to Aston Martin say they've discovered a concept no other team has even attempted, and it's coming from one man, ADRIAN Newey. Red Bull is watching. Ferrari is worried. And McLaren? They've quietly moved their simulator program forward by 2 weeks, just to analyze what they think Newey might be doing. But what's leaked over the past 10 days is far more radical than anyone expected. Not just a design trick, not just an aerodynamic edge. What Newey may have built could fundamentally break the way Formula One balances hybrid power and aero in 2026. And the terrifying part? It might be completely legal. Aston Martin's 2026 car, the AMR26, will be unveiled on February 9th. The launch will happen quietly, almost clinically, just a few hours after McLaren pulls the cover off its MCL40. But make no mistake, this isn't a normal presentation. Because this time, it's not just about the car. It's about the man behind it. This will be ADRIAN Newey's first true Aston Martin design. Not a consultancy. Not an advisory role. A full technical signature, top to bottom. He joined the project early, during concept phase. And he's been shaping every major decision ever since. It's also the team's first car built around a factory Honda engine. Unlike previous seasons, where Aston Martin used customer Mercedes power, 2026 marks a fundamental shift. They're no longer borrowing technology. They're integrating it. Power unit and chassis developed in parallel, just like Red Bull used to do. But the bigger picture is what surrounds all this. Because 2026 isn't just a new car. It's a reset of the entire sport. Smaller cars, lighter packaging, 50% hybrid energy recovery, active aero, and power units that demand extreme efficiency at every phase of the lap. In this new world, the old rules about drag, cooling, energy no longer apply. Most teams are trying to adapt to this complexity. They're optimizing their simulations, trying to balance unpredictable energy behavior with fragile aerodynamic stability. Every concept is a compromise, but not Newey. What's emerging from Silverstone isn't a response to the new rules. It's an attempt to bypass them entirely. And that's where the fear begins. Because this isn't just another clever floor design, or a flexible wing trick. What sources suggest is that Newey has built a system that merges active aero and power delivery into a single, reactive platform, guided by real-time data. The AMR26 doesn't just adjust itself, it learns. And that's what no one is prepared for. It started with one word. Unconfirmed, but repeated by 3 different engineers across 3 different teams. Predictive. They weren't talking about software. Not just a simulator tool. They were referring to what Aston Martin may have embedded into the AMR26 itself. A system that doesn't just react, but anticipates. Technically, every F1 car has sensors. Thousands of them. Measuring pressure, temperature, G-force, load transfer. But what makes this different, what's causing real anxiety, is how those signals are being used. According to internal sources, the AMR26 doesn't rely on preset maps for aerodynamic switching. It doesn't toggle between straight-line mode and cornering mode like everyone else. Instead, it adjusts itself dynamically, frame by frame, based on predicted load patterns, throttle behavior, and terrain profiling. In other words, it's not reacting to what the car is doing. It's adjusting to what it knows it's about to do. That would allow the car to deploy aero changes before the corner even arrives, to shift balance mid-brake, to lower drag before the straight even opens. And that changes everything. Because under the 2026 rules, active aero is limited to 2 defined modes, controlled by driver input and simple switching logic. But if the AMR26 is running a predictive matrix that can self-modulate those changes without external input, then the legality becomes complicated. This is where the silence gets louder. No one from Aston Martin has denied the existence of this system. No one from the FIA has clarified its legality. And that's why teams are worried. Because if this is allowed, if it's ruled as within the switching logic, then the regulations don't matter anymore. What matters is who has the better algorithm. There's a reason this is so uncomfortable for the FIA. And it goes beyond just one car. Because what Aston Martin may have done with the AMR26 exposes a regulatory weakness that no one was prepared for. A weakness they've seen before. It's not the first time ADRIAN Newey has pushed a gray area to the point of structural failure. In 2009, his double diffuser with Braun broke the aero game. In 2010, he introduced the blown diffuser that exploited exhaust gases under braking. In 2021, the Red Bull rear wing controversy triggered a mid-season flex test revision. Every time, the same pattern emerged. Newey designs to the limits of interpretation. The FIA reacts after the fact, and the rest of the grid spends months catching up or protesting. Now, with the AMR26, it's happening again. But the difference is, this time, the rules themselves might not be enforceable. Because under Article 3.10 of the 2026 Technical Regulations, active aerodynamic devices must switch between two predefined modes, controlled by a standardized logic system. But the rules don't define how that logic is calculated. There's no clarity on whether it must be reactive, or whether predictive data use is banned. And that's the loophole. A hole in the wording. One that Newey may have designed the entire car around. And here's what makes it worse. According to internal briefings, the FIA's own software inspection tools, developed for 2026 compliance, can only monitor input and output. They can't see how a system processes its aerodynamic decisions in real time. They only see that a switch happened, not why it happened. Which means if Aston Martin coded the system correctly, if they built the logic deep enough into the car's operational brain, there's no way to detect whether it was predictive or not. Not unless the FIA rewrites the definitions. Not unless they restructure how they define control logic. And the fear inside the paddock? Is that Newey knows this. And worse, that he's known it since the beginning. On the surface, the idea sounds technical. A predictive aerodynamic system. An integration between onboard intelligence and mechanical components. But that's not what really scares the other teams. What's creating the tension is what that system enables. Because if Newey's concept works, if it truly anticipates aerodynamic load before it arrives, then Aston Martin doesn't need to simulate like everyone else. They'll already know what's coming. That means fewer setup laps, less tire degradation during testing, cleaner data under race conditions. It means more efficient feedback, and faster convergence toward optimal race pace. But the real issue isn't just pace, it's power. Because this year, Aston Martin is running a brand new Honda Works engine. A unit designed from the ground up for 2026 deployment. And that engine, unlike customer units from Ferrari or Mercedes, is being mapped in parallel with the predictive aero system. In other words, the power unit isn't just reacting to driver input. It's preparing itself based on what the chassis expects to happen. That would allow the engine to store energy more efficiently, to deploy MGUK boosts before the car even exits the corner, to balance temperatures and minimize losses in a way no other package can replicate. And here's the part no one's discussing publicly. Every other team has built their systems in layers. Engine first, chassis second, aero third. Aston Martin? They've built theirs as one machine, one logic, one brain. A hybrid of aerodynamic prediction, thermal strategy, and energy deployment. Coordinated, not separated. Which means, the AMR26 isn't just a fast car. It's a self-managing platform. And that is something no simulator can model. Until you've already lost 3 races trying. If Aston Martin's system works, even at 80% of what's been described, then we're about to watch the grid reorganize itself, violently. Because the teams that took 2026 as a regulation reset, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, built their cars with an assumption that the active aero rules would be clear, binary, and enforceable. But Aston Martin didn't play by that assumption. They built around the ambiguity. And now the others are scrambling. Ferrari has requested an internal review of its aerodynamic switching logic. Not because they've broken anything, but because they suddenly feel behind. Very behind. Mercedes, for their part, are furious. But silent. Because if they challenge the legality too loudly, they risk revealing their own vulnerabilities with the W17. Red Bull's case is more delicate. Sources suggest they're split internally. Their aero department believes Aston Martin is bluffing. But their power unit team, still rebuilding post-Honda, isn't so sure. They've already requested access to more detailed simulator data, which, by the way, has been locked behind additional layers of access since the Aston rumors began. And here's where things spiral. If Aston Martin's concept gains even a half second over a full race distance, not in top speed, but in energy efficiency, corner entry balance, and low drag deployment, then every team stuck inside the standard mode switching logic is playing catch-up with the wrong playbook. It's not just a technical gap. It's philosophical. Because what Newey has done, once again, is force the sport to rethink how compliance is defined. He's not chasing tenths with parts. He's chasing time with systems. And the teams that built around components are now watching a team that built around behavior. And if that proves faster, then 2026 won't be about budget caps or wind tunnels. It will be about intelligence. And which car understands the race before it happens? As of today, no one outside Silverstone has seen the AMR26 in full. No render. No technical briefing. No leak from the wind tunnel. Just fragments, whispers from suppliers, simulator operators, and rival engineers. And yet, it's already the most feared car of the new era. The official line? Aston Martin will present a fully compliant 2026 Challenger. But what they don't say, what no one is willing to say publicly, is whether compliant means conforming to intent, or simply not triggering a rule. And the difference between those two might decide the first half of the 2026 championship. Behind the scenes, the FIA is watching. Not investigating, not yet, but reviewing, quietly. According to one insider, there's already a draft clarification memo circulating, targeted at Articles 3.10 and 8.4. If published, it could redefine how logic switching is interpreted. But it hasn't been published. And until it is, the system stands. And here's the real problem. If the AMR26 is legal as is, and delivers even 0.3 seconds of consistent advantage, no other team can respond mid-season. They'll be stuck with legacy architecture, a framework built on assumptions, not anticipation. So what happens now? Do the other teams protest before the first race? Do they wait until round 3? Or do they try to copy a system they still don't fully understand? Because if Aston Martin took a risk, and the FIA allows it, then the rest of the grid faces a brutal choice. Pivot late or lose early. And one final question hangs over everything. What if this isn't even the full version? What if what they show in February isn't what they race in March? And if that's the case, then the AMR26 may not be terrifying because of what it is today, but because of what it's still hiding.